Since the beginning of time, mankind has striven to double and redouble his powers.
A mysterious machine has appeared in homes across America.
All right, baby.
Increase the power of the unit 40 times.
32X.
Welcome to the next life.
You spill your drink?
I don't have a drink.
Uh-oh.
The 32X was an add-on for the Sega Genesis released in North America on November 21st, 1994. It was designed to expand the power of the Genesis, but due to lack of third-party support and the release of the Sega Saturn not far away, the 32X was short-lived and only had 40 titles, including 6 that were required by both the Sega 32X and Sega CD. Today I'm going to give you my top 10 of the 34 titles that do not require a Sega CD to play. Motocross Championship. This exclusive title has a lot of hate on it for many valid reasons. It has sloppy controls, mediocre graphics at best, and comparing this game in any way possible to Road Rash on the Genesis is way out of line. Still, I find enjoyment in this game. For some reason, every race starts out in a complete fiasco as bikers knock into each other while screaming. As you attempt to gain position, I find this amusing and like to punch and kick my way to first place in this mess of a game for a brief sitting time to time. You cannot perform any stunts in this game, but if you get enough air, you can see where the sky ends, and that is always a treat. There is also a 2-player split-screen mode available to share the madness with a friend, which is always a bonus in my book. This is not a game I would recommend playing for long periods of time, but I can still think of many games that are much worse on the 32X. Kolibri. This sandbox shooter features a hummingbird that acquires powers that you use to destroy all the insects in the land. The graphics are great and the controls are tight. This is easily the most unique exclusive on the system. Can you think of any better games featuring a hummingbird? Cosmic Carnage. This game is another exclusive for the system. It's not a bad game, but falls short when compared to other Sega exclusive 2D fighters like Eternal Champions. The game's most notable feature is the armor option for characters. The armor grants you different abilities, and during battle it can be knocked off to switch up the gameplay during rounds. The visuals are vibrant and colorful, but nothing outstanding that can set this game apart from the Genesis. The music fits the game, but nothing I would want to listen to on its own. The game mostly suffers in the gameplay department when trying to do anything out of the basic control realm. Performing special attacks is just not as fluent as many other fighters and really hurts the gameplay. All in all, it is a mediocre fighter at best, but easily good enough to make a spot on this top 10. Star Wars Arcade. One thing I can say about this game is that it really does showcase the 32X's polygonal graphic capabilities. It's a good-looking Star Wars game for the time, where you can dogfight TIE fighters in space, infiltrate Star Destroyers, and battle over the Death Star. The game includes a 4-mission arcade mode and an expanded 8-mission 32X mode. You can choose between an X-Wing for single player or a Y-Wing to add a friend as a gunner while you pilot the craft. The game features great sound and music, and really only suffers when the frame rate drops in certain areas of the game. Overall, it is still enjoyable and one of the more memorable releases for the 32X.
Wipe out enemy fighters.
Metalhead. I always felt this was a fun, underrated title on the 32X. The graphics are not great from a visual standpoint, but impressive from a technical standpoint, being one of the few games that uses bit mapping, which means textures on polygons. Even though the visuals are lacking in the game, it is easily made up for with the good tunes and fun gameplay. Most missions are based on destroying all enemy mechs to proceed to the next level, but as the game progresses you will encounter more involved missions like taking a photo of an entrance of a base and guiding a helicopter to a designated location. All in all, this game is quite fun for those into mech games. It's not perfect and it has its flaws, but it could not be a 32X game unless it had flaws. But with the upbeat tunes, the exploding angry mechs, and the fluent gameplay and storyline, most will find this game worth their time.
Later, chump.
Doom. If you're a regular viewer of the channel, it should be no surprise that this game is on the list. This was a launch title and my sole reason for getting the add-on. If you want to hear a more detailed story about it and my first experience with Doom, check out my Brutal Doom video. There really isn't a whole lot to say about this other than it is Doom, with a decent frame rate considering the hardware, and that it only has the first 2 episodes of the game. I have to admit, this game is on the list more for nostalgia than quality, but there are not too many instances I can think of where you can go wrong with Doom. Virtua Fighter. The 32X version of Virtua Fighter is arguably better than the original Saturn version that launched with the system. I bet you didn't expect me to say that. But in all honesty, when you put them both through their paces and get to the heart of the matter, the Saturn disappointed with a game it should have easily handled, while the 32X produced a port no one thought was possible. Considering how dated the Genesis was at this point and how much weaker the 32X was compared to the newer 32-bit hardware, the feat is all the more impressive. I only wish the little mushroom could have been given more of a chance, as I'm sure developers could have produced some awesome stuff with a bit of time and dedication. Too bad we'll never know. Blackthorne. Blackthorne is brought to us by Blizzard, the people who brought us the Warcraft, Starcraft, and the Diablo series. With those games, it's no wonder that Blackthorne has been all but forgotten. The 32X version is the definitive console version for its graphics that got a pretty big overhaul from the SNES version. The characters are now in 3D, and the backgrounds look much better with the 32X's colors than they ever did on the SNES. In addition to the graphical improvements, there is an added snow level not found in the SNES version. Overall, this game is a must to own when collecting for the 32X.
Virtua Racing.
Now I know what you're thinking. What is with all these titles that you have just as good, if not better, ports on other consoles? Well, like Blackthorne, this version is the definitive version I enjoy to play the most over the Genesis and even the Saturn. The exclusive 3 different car option completely changes the way you approach this game. The F1 car is the most balanced of the 3 and likely to be the one you play with the most, but be sure to try out the stock car and the prototype. The stock car is the least impressive of the 3 car models, but it's a beast on the track. The prototype is the fastest of the cars, making it the hardest to control. Half the fun is trying each car on the different tracks, finding your favorite, and then going for top times. Unfortunately, Virtua Racing does not save your times though. If you are starting a 32X collection, Virtua Racing Deluxe should be one of your first 3 pickups. It's not hard to be one of the best 32X games since so many were poor, but Virtua Racing Deluxe is a good racer in any company. Sega really knew how to create racing games back in the day. Plus, it's a great artifact from the transition between not just 2D and 3D, but the 16-bit generation and the 32-bit machines. Knuckles Chaotix. One of the weakest aspects of the Sonic's later 16-bit sequels was the lopsided multiplayer that cast the second player in the role of wingman, occasionally landing some useful hits during boss fights, but mostly struggling to keep up with player one whipping around through loops and corkscrews. Chaotix would be the first in the series to offer completely equal cooperative play. It accomplished this not by offering the usual split-screen gimmicks, but by tethering two characters together with a magic rubber band. This rubber band mechanic not only kept the players glued together, but gave them some new physics to play with. If both players ran in opposite directions and one let go, he would snap back and send the pair rocketing forward. If one was dangling below a platform, he could pull down and bounce back up. Skilled players with good teamwork could hurtle through the air at tremendous speeds, and the result truly was the fastest Sonic yet, with the biggest aerial game. Unfortunately, this also meant that if you were playing with someone who didn't know the game that well, you were in for a frustrating experience and probably better off playing solo, where you could command your own partner with a simple button press. The rubber band gameplay was different, controversial, and took some time to master, but it really wasn't bad. It actually added a new layer of depth. Chaotix also introduced a large cast of new characters, each with their own aerial maneuvers like the ability to run up walls, dash in midair, or even fly. Fans have grown weary of the parade of new characters in recent Sonics, but at the time, the Chaotix crew was a hoot. Well, that's my top 10 for the 32X. Do you agree with my list? What would be your top 10? Let me know in the comments below.
Woo!